Hello, everybody. We're getting started. It's 5:02. Welcome to this very important topic of coaching youth from pressure to purpose to possibilities. This is an event organized by ICF Jordan within the events of ICF International Coaching Week. I'm sure you've attended many sessions already, whether in person or online. I hope that this will be a special one. We have two more sessions after this one. There's another one about youth right after this one that starts at 6 p.m. It's in collaboration with ICF Jordan and ICF UAE. And we finish today with a session on AI. It'll be in Arabic. It's organized by ICF Jordan. So I hope you tune in and connect. Our guest for today, well, let me introduce myself. My name is Muna Hamdan. I'm a transition and empowerment coach. I'm director of education and credentialing at ICF Jordan chapter. And our guest today is the esteemed Rajat Soni. Rajat is a youth and parents coach. He has done over 7,000 hours of coaching across 17 countries with youth and parents. He has written a book. He is called the Teen Whisperer, and we'll soon find out why. And he has written a book, and it was a bestseller on Amazon, and it's titled Unjudge Your Teenager. So we'll find out about all of this. He's been featured in, many important magazines. You can look up, I'll be here until tomorrow if I wanted to go through the CV and give him due credit. So without further ado, let's start. Welcome, Rajat. It's very good to have you. Thank you for being here. I wanted you to, we're going to talk about pressure and then purpose and then possibilities. But I would like to start with your journey. Where did it all begin?
Sure. Thank you so much for an amazing introduction. And I was someone who was into the corporate sector for about a decade, corporate and entrepreneurial experience I had. And I quit the corporate sector to be a coach. Now, at that point in time, the only thought was of being an executive coach. So working with the corporates and things like that. But I did my ICF, the whole certification process, and I was fairly fortunate to have amongst my first clients who were CXOs of organizations. Now, there we used to have like 6-month contracts, and we used to work twice a month or sometimes once a month with the client. Now, one of the clients, it was very interesting because that day he said that I don't want to speak to you about work or KPIs, KRAs. No, I want to speak to you about my son, who is 15 years old. And he was diagnosed with Asperger's when he was 4 years old, and now he's 15. And till he was about 10 or 11, we were still able to deal with it because he would still listen to us. But then, when the teenage started coming in, the preteen started coming in, he was suffering a lot from within, but he was not able to cope up with a lot of things. So he would go to school, but he was the one who would, be caught, be found in the principal's room because he was, caught with something in the bag which he had not put. So, and there's so much rejection he had borne. And then the father at the end of it, now I was also just listening to him. I said, okay, fine, vent it out, whatever you want to share. Towards the end, he said, Rajat, can you help? And I was like, this is something, honestly, at that point in time, 9.5 years back, I heard about Asperger's for the first time. It was not something I had a background in. So I was said that, this is something very new to me and I don't have an experience in it. But somewhere, he said that, Rajat, I know you can help because we have tried everything and I just want you to give it a shot. Now, seeing a CXO emotional in the conversation, I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot, but give me some time. But he didn't give me any time. He said, you just come over, we'll meet at a pizza place because the comfort food of teenagers and especially of that of that kid was pizza. So we met at a pizza place, and there he was sitting in front of me, Muna. And he literally was like very, very anxious. His legs were shaking. He was extremely anxious. And it was my first, interaction like this with a teenager, unless like except for my niece whom I'd interacted with. So anyways, we started the conversation. The first 15 minutes, it was me talking mostly. And then he spoke in a slightly digitized voice, the way he spoke. And we spoke about different areas of his life. When we came to the area of career, Muna, he said that my dad wants me to be a doctor. And once I become a doctor, I will leave. So there was a very awkward silence, and he basically wanted to give up on his life. And because of all the rejection he had borne, because of his, even his grandparents had kind of assumed that. So I think that is something which hit me very strong that day. And, it was just like any of us would think that, just live like any other teenager with your complexities, with your confusions, with everything, but just live, like that. And then I think I contacted somebody on my own on LinkedIn. So it became purely a passion to work with that child, to help him really come out of it. That's how it started. I contacted an ASPE coach in New Mexico, and she was very kind, very graceful to coach me on the technical aspects, because that was not my expertise at that point in time. But I think what worked very beautifully between me and that teenager was connection, human connection. I mean, of course, there were tools, there were strategies, and it was over a period of 3 months, the first 3 months, when I saw the first spark. We went to a bowling alley, and he was doing his bowling, and he did a strike. And this boy, who was so conscious of people around, so scared about what people would think about him, he was dancing in the middle of the alley, and he didn't care. His face was not expressing, but his body was moving. It was like that. And then I said, yeah, we are seeing that change, and it'll happen. And it took us about 6 months. And then after 6 months, so for 1 month, he was not meeting me. First, he had gone for a holiday abroad. When he came back 1 month, he was not meeting me. And he said that after 1 month, we met again at a pizza place because he likes it there. And there he came with a smile on his face, which was more natural, because he was earlier taught how to express, So, but here he came with a very natural smile on his face, and he said, Rajat, he used to call me Rajat. I was just like his friend. Rajat, I'm happy. And if, somewhere I could express it within myself, I was probably kneeling down and just saying, thank you, that, he's there. So I think he transformed more than him. I transformed. And that's the day I decided that I want to work with teenagers. And I think slowly and gradually working with teenagers day in, day out on different aspects it just, and slowly learning more and more tools on the way, because teenagers like variety. They don't like to be stuck on one thing. Asking them the right kind of questions, understanding what kind of questions they connect with. That's where my journey started. And slowly it's a profession that chose me, Mona, then I chose it. So that's how my journey has been for the last 9.5 years now.
Fantastic. I always say that we as coaches learn as much from our coachees and clients as they learn from us, and probably even more. Very interesting. Let's get started on the pressures. What are the most common pressures that teenagers face across cultures? Now, we will touch on culture a bit later on, talk about coaching in different cultural contexts, but let's start, the commonalities between teenagers across the world, the challenges.
Sure. Sure. And thank you for that, Mona. I'll take it area by area, like we have the wheel of life in our coaching. So I'll take it aspect by aspect. Right. When we talk about, so this is the first area if I would take up is family, where it's parents and the teenagers' connection, where it comes. So one thing which is very common across the world, which I see across the children I worked with, they say that adults don't understand us. So, you know, that is one thing which comes a lot, you know, where that parent-teen connection, they sometimes feel judged. They feel they are being given lectures, but they are not being, there's a lot of teach and tell approach rather than understanding them. So that is one very important thing when it comes to families. Also, if we go to more, I won't go very deep into it, but just talking about there are certain, you know, when you have certain families where there is either a single parent or there have been where parents have been separated, and the situations are different in a family. In those cases, there is a lot of emotional neglect somehow where what the children feel. It's not that the parents are intentionally doing it. So that emotional neglect is what the teenagers feel a lot, and that reflects in their behavior in form of aggression, in the form of rebellion, or in the form of lot of anxiety with them, which reflects in various areas. Other than that, if we talk about friendships, then so some of the kids, it's especially with respect to making friends. Now it's a very digital world, and establishing those real connections is sometimes which feels as a challenge to them. Mona, are you there? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so when you talk about friendships, so it's about whether how to make friends. You
I
there?
think my connection is unstable for some reason.
Okay. Okay. So about friendships, it's about social skills. How do they establish those connections? How sometimes they feel a kind of social isolation where they see, you know, certain groups, you know, they want to be part of a certain group and they are not being able to be part of that group. And the group is constantly rejecting them, but they are still craving to be there. You know, so a lot of things in terms of connection with the friends. Then about a lot of peer pressure where they would resort to doing certain things just because they want to look cool or they want to be part of that gang. So that is something that comes in a lot. And honestly, all these things also reflect on their academics a lot of time. When we come to the area of academics or subjects or grades or studies, we generally see when the teenager is having a difficult friendship or a difficult relationship at that point in time. So that would reflect in their grades also at times where their scores would start going down. You will see it. And many times the reason is that this happened in school and this is affecting me a lot. It could be anything like bullying. It could be a relationship breakup. It could be snitching, which is very common in schools nowadays, where they're talking about each other and something really bad goes about you. So that's one thing which comes in, and which also leads to a lot of procrastination in academics, especially where they will be constantly it's the time to study, but then you will find them on their gadgets, which is a common parent thing also that comes up with and honestly gadgets are not to blame. You know, we sometimes parents tend to put it a lot on the gadgets. It's a lot of other things. It's about and then sometimes parents, you know, resort to very extreme measures also, where they would completely take off the mobile from them or take off the privileges from them. So sometimes extreme measures are taken instead of discussion. So yeah. You were saying? Okay. And yeah, so the academics is one area. Then comes to career more in terms of clarity, in terms of what they want to do going forward. And sometimes it's very influenced also. Is it aligned to their values? So when I work with the teenagers, I help them explore their core values, especially core values or their amazing qualities. So, you know, like there was one student who was very, very passionate about doing architecture. She wanted to get into architecture, but then because her relative, who was an architect, gave her a very negative impression about the whole profession.
The field.
Yeah, exactly. So then she was like, I don't think it's right for me. And you know, you should speak to her. When you speak to her, she's now she is pursuing the same profession. It's been so many years now. But then that time she was, and you should have heard her passion. I'm like, does that person hold the same passion as you? What is a priority for you? Is that a priority for her? So understanding your values, what is it that you want from that career and what is that she wants from it is very different. So, things like these. So career, procrastination, juggling between different things, balancing between their social media, between their studies, between their friends, it can get very overwhelming for them. So a lot of balancing things there. So these are some of the things that come at the top of the mind, but definitely expressing themselves to their parents poses to be a very big challenge.
Wow. Where do we start with this? I really want to touch on the point of values. I think understanding one's values is a game changer for adults and young people alike. I think it really is. And, yesterday we had a session on understanding talent and strengths, like the Clifton strengths and other, tools to determine one's strengths. And a lot of people said, we wish we knew about this when we were younger. Because you can invest so much in directing people to the right places, whether you're a parent, a coach, or an educator. Okay, let's talk about things that reflect. We spoke about this earlier, Rajat. There was a series on, I think it was Netflix, the Adolescent series. And I just want to touch on it quickly because it became like the rave, everybody was watching it. And there were messages in that series. And, it's a mini series. I think it's only 4 or 6 episodes. So what was the message and what was the challenge, the main challenge in the story for people? Because I don't think everybody has watched it here.
Oh, okay. So it'll be great to ask how many have actually watched the series, the Netflix series Adolescents. It'll be good to have a quick chat. If you have watched.
Put please a yes or a no in the chat box.
Oh, Victoria has watched it. Great. Okay. Oh, all right.
Yes, yes. Quite a few people have watched. Right. Someone is still watching it. Yes.
Yeah, so it's a movie that shares the story of a teenager who is it talks about what lies behind the silence of a teenager, and then how we see him in prison and he's being questioned about a murder that has been done by him. And honestly, this movie is something which it's about that interrogation at what happens, but more than that, it's about what goes on within the teenage heart, brain, mind, what is going on within him. And it's a story of Jamie, the boy we talk about. And it's not only his story of the main protagonist, it's also the story that also the series covers a number of other teenagers and what they deal with. So there are points, I think the messages which come out are the message of emotional neglect, which is disguised as care at times, because so Jamie's parents provide him, according to them, they provide him with all the comforts like technology, food, freedom. He has those things, but what is missing is consistent emotional presence. That is what he needed the most. And we see that, and I see that a lot in parents today also, where they would come and say that the kids have everything on a platter, but they don't value it. But probably the one thing that they're missing is that presence and that connection. That is one thing which came in. Then it was also about the toxicity and the communication gaps that lie around technology. Basically talks about Jamie's descent into online toxicity, which happens very slowly, and no adult notices it until it gets too late. The parents would never know what he's watching, what's happening in his life. They've never really stepped into his shoes. So this is something which was there. Then, of course, there was a point where they also tend to talk about, I think it is toward the end it happens, where they say that Jamie's parents, they wonder why he's so different from his sister. They speak about that, if you've seen that, Mona. So sometimes what happens, And I see that, I won't categorize it like that, but I've somehow seen that a little more in boys where, you know, I'll just talk about Jamie in this case. He was just expected to manage. He was that, you know, seen as that low maintenance guy who, even if you give less attention to him, it's fine, it'll work. So he was somewhere expected to manage things on his own, which was something which came on. And this I see, you know, the burden of being a good kid. This is something which also is very prevalent today, where teenagers would, in order to seem like a good kid, they would not speak a lot of things or would not share a lot of things, but the clutter is already there. I think the series also talks about a lot about the gender stereotypes and about emotion regulation. I think in adolescence, it's again it's Jamie's exposure to the toxic online masculinity, which he gets exposed to, where, you know, vulnerability, if a boy is vulnerable and, you know, that is mocked. And if he's controlling other people, especially women, that is glorified. And, you know, it's something that we see a lot also. Then I think one very important thing, and I often see this also with me, is that the mental health support part, it comes too late. Till that psychologist in the prison didn't speak to him, he was not opening up. And when mental health support came, at what time? When, you know, if it had come little earlier. So help basically was sought when Jamie actually spiraled into a crisis. His behavior became very violent. His internal world became very chaotic. Uh, you know, that is something which was, again, I feel about the series, which was very disturbing. Some of the things that I observed within the series that came out, but mostly about that silence and the emotional neglect part. Yes.
Yes. And I think the reaction at the end, you know, by the parents was just incredible. We as parents are responsible. We made him. We could have done more. We could, you know, we as parents could always do more. I think that's very important for parents to remember. Some people are asking what books, sites would you suggest? We'll open the floor at the end. Hopefully we'll have time for a Q&A for about 10 or 15 minutes when we have time. Thank you. And, you know, we'll talk about Rajat's book as well. But for now, I wanted to speak about coaching for teenagers. What does coaching do? How does it happen? This is a compounded question. No, how does the coaching process start? Please walk us through the process. You know, consent, parents, are the parents present? Do they get, you know, updates on progress? You know, I think it's important to understand how it works. Please.
Sure. So my first conversation is always with the parents, which is a conversation to understand what is their perspective about their child, which is generally a brief conversation, just to get an idea of what is really going on. Then I have a detailed conversation with the teenager. Now, this is the conversation which really matters. Again, this conversation, so again, it depends upon contracting. Now, when we are doing the contract with the parents, if we get to the technical aspects of it, in some cases, the parents, so the amount of updates that go to the parents are decided in that. Like, I would not share every aspect of what I'm speaking to them, of course, but if there is something that genuinely requires awareness, that would go out to them. So it depends upon the contracting we have done in line with the ICF Code of Ethics and the ICF. Right. So the second conversation is with the teenager, and that is a conversation. Now, a difference between working with adults and teenagers, I feel, is that the readiness for coaching, there is an initial hitch in teenagers. You know, that, okay, again, somebody's coming. There's already so much I'm doing. Who is this person coming? So these things, there's an initial hitch. But once they are there, so, I also tell the parents that even if they're a little hesitant, just tell them to come on 10 minutes for a Zoom call. And if they're not okay, they can quit. Now, nobody quits, but then it's the way of saying it because, they can feel comfortable about it. That conversation is the most crucial part of it. And in that conversation, the first aspect, which I have learned over the years, what's worked, is the rapport creation. Because I think having worked with so many teens now, I understand their world in a way, like things they like. So, or some things which they are not comfortable speaking to their parents about. They find like this person I can talk to.
Yes.
And the first thing in rapport which matters is authenticity. I am not an expert. I am not any person popular. I am here with whom I'm like a mirror in front of you, and you can just share anything you want to share with me. And and in that process, some kids are vent out kids also, where they're just venting out and they're structuring things in their mind. They're natural coaches that way. But then, so the first conversation is the rapport creation, where you really like the first kid I worked with, he really liked Tupac, who was a rap artist, right? And I was not really a rap guy, but then I stepped into his world. I do that work where I would listen to his rap, because his lyrics were very revolutionary. If you see the lyrics that Tupac had were very revolutionary. And this guy also, he would talk about him so much. So then I stepped into that world. And so expressing that inquisitiveness, that genuine intent to understand the person. And kids understand that. They understand authenticity. They understand your emotion. They know what you want to do. So it's the first step is the rapport creation, which really makes a difference. And then talking about the various areas of their life, again, giving them the lead.
Yes.
As coaches, as a coach, I give them the lead that you speak, you judge yourself on how you rate yourself, observe yourself, and tell me how you feel about each area of your life. Whether it's your connection with your parents, whether it is all the different areas of life. And then after that, we start the process of how many sessions the kid needs. And then we plan this together, which is shared, which is discussed with the teenager, of course, and he's okay with the process. And then we move forward. The teenager is also, it's also shared with him and discussed with him that we would be having certain family conversations or parent conversations in between. So, and we do that only when he's ready for it. Everything is in consent based. Nothing happens without consent. And that is
both parties.
From both
parties, yes, the parents and the teenager.
From both the parties. And also, I think consent is also something which comes very important when parents talk about setting boundaries. So when we do family conversations, in that we set boundaries also on consent. If there are any boundaries to be set for digital or anything like that, where the kid doesn't feel on the spot and where things happen more mutually. So consent is a very important part. Understanding their culture, all those things comes into it. And then, of course, we go ahead with the sessions, and then we do a progress towards the end of the engagement. Once we do a progress review, and then we plan further. So this is how it goes. Yeah.
Fantastic. I wanted to explore what purpose means to teenagers.
I think purpose equals acceptance. For a lot of teenagers, I think their sense of purpose comes from the sense of acceptance. From initially, it's about what they think about me, and then it comes to how they accept themselves. And yes, Alia, as you mentioned, it's a lot about belonging and significance, the two basic emotional needs of the teenagers that they need. Two things: belonging and significance. But the purpose, I believe, is that once they get that acceptance, then they are able to also decode, or they are more receptive to decoding what their goal in life is or what they want to do, keep going forward. I would like to put it like that.
And how do you help them identify and work towards, just imagining in full color, what their purpose in life really is? Do you use tools?
Yes. Again, I would say there is no one tool which works for every teenager. But yes, a vision board helps to start with. And a vision board also in different ways. I mean, one is, of course, where you're doing the vision board, where you are making them put all their dreams they have in mind. And, some of the teenagers are so fun. They would, Minecraft is very beautiful. So one of the kids, they created their dream house on Minecraft. They wanted 2 pools, they wanted a gaming room in that house, and they actually created it on it. And it was so beautiful the way this person did it. There was one girl who I helped. So with her, so one is vision board, where they put all their dreams in their mind, and then we put them into so dreams with legs, as I say, are goals. Then we set goals for it. What is it that you need? So you're right now in grade 8 or grade 9, and you have to go to so this is where you want to go. You want to own which car, they tell me. Okay, I learned to hear a lot of new car brands from them. Also, I want to own this or something like that. Or some want to open an NGO. That's also things that they want to do. So there are a lot of different things they want to do in their life. Okay, so if you're here and you want to be here, these are your steps. So what will take you there? So that is one way of the vision. The other way is helping them visualize their future, because see, every teenager's learning style is different. Some are more auditory, some are more visual, some are more hands-on. So especially with kids who are more kinesthetic basically, who learn more hands-on and they like to experience things and do them. For them, I use the strategy where I have these 3 things put up on the floor, or if it's on Zoom, I make them do it. One is called the dreamer. On one sheet is written the dreamer, the other is the critic, and the third is the realist. So I use a strategy, and then they step on each and they experience it fully. And when they're on the dreamer side, they will think on the dreamer side what's going on. And another thing which I use with them, which was one girl I was talking about before, I did a visualization thing with her on where she sees herself 20 years from now. So it was not, because she was not very comfortable doing a vision board. So then we did that. And she was an artist. So she sketched her future in that, and she was somebody who was a very academically inclined girl, but her dreams were very different. She saw herself on stage, and she's made that painting. I put it on my LinkedIn post. There was a post also I put. So she's made that whole painting where she is speaking in front of a large group of people. She's standing up there and she's watching them. So, helping them understand their purpose. Also, at this age, Mona, things also do change. Of course, the intrinsic things would show. If a child is more compassionate, that compassion will show in his final purpose or her final purpose. But based on the current mindset, how they see going forward is what I work on with them. Yes, that's what I do.
There was an interesting question. I was looking very quickly, even though we said we defer this, but it's in my notes. Is there a difference between coaching boys and girls in that age group? And let me go back to the age group, because the definition of youth varies. The UN says it's 15 to 24. According to the African Charter, it's up to 35. According to the EU, it's up to 29. And according to the USA, it's 21 or 24. What age group are we talking about specifically? The people you have actually coached, Rajat. what's the age bracket?
Okay, so to basically talk about the differences here, I think I will take up the age group of 14 to 17.
Okay.
Where I have noted more differences.
Mhm.
Although I say every teenager is different on their own way, unique in their own way. But this is basically based on my experience. I'm not generalizing it. But then what I have seen is, especially the 15 to 17 age group, I've seen more aggression in the teenage boys and more rebellion in the teenage girls. Again, across different cultures. It's not that every culture has it, but across different cultures, I've seen that. And one thing common in both I have seen is body image thing. Like, a teenage boy would be very conscious if he's going out for somewhere, he would be very conscious of what he's wearing. I remember one session, he just opened his wardrobe. Rajat, tell me, what should I wear? I'm like, okay, this, you're looking cool anyways, okay? And same with the girls. So with the girls, that's a little more amplified when it comes to the body image part, because they become, I've noticed them becoming more conscious about whether it's their complexion, whether it is, so these things do come up. But when working with them, yes, again, working with them, certain tools work better with the, again, I'm not generalizing, it's just that
Yes, it's
like
just,
that.
we're drawn, yeah.
So it's like 14 to 17, 15 to 17 age group, it would be, yeah. I see the girls more receptive to the questions that come in.
Mhm.
With the boys, a little more probing is required. As in probing, as in you have to go a little more structured on the questions. That's what I have seen. Like, I've seen the girls more receptive to the questions that come in. They are more receptive to the emotional aspects when you're talking about. The boys would sometimes uh, uh, avoid initially. That would happen at times where they would hold themselves back. Uh, yeah, so some of these things coming to my mind, yeah.
All right, super. I wanted to ask you, what warning signs should parents and educators look for to feel that, help from outside is definitely needed?
One is a sudden fall in grades. Generally, it's reflected, starts from
Mhm.
there. That's when parents approach you. Or if a kid goes suddenly quiet or
Mhm.
suddenly loud, very suddenly he gets too aggressive.
Mhm.
And they notice it happening over some time, like 2-3 months or things like that. Because once, if the grades have come, but if it's a sudden fall again, it's a concern.
Mhm.
Uh, these things, yeah, if the child is a little more withdrawn, they would notice it. He's not. Uh, mm, if a child is off his gadgets a bit, or too much on the gadgets, either ways, extremities of it. If the
Okay.
child is withdrawing, uh, one thing more I noticed this more during the COVID time though, where a lot of teens were resorting to relationships because they felt a sense of loneliness and they did not feel a connection within the family from the, so they were seeking connection outside. And that is one of the reasons they cited for getting into a relationship at that point in time. So yeah, so warning signs would be definitely sudden fall in grades, would be a sudden change in behavior, extremities in behavior, any form of aggression, any form of that. How they behave with their siblings, yes, that also makes a difference. That there also a change comes. They would either become, they generally become either too bossy with their sibling, or so there is a certain difference because they are taking out their frustration
Yes.
somewhere. So some of these things, some of the very extreme things would be where they're throwing things or banging things, but then that's very extreme.
Mhm. Right, let's talk about the parents and educators a little bit. What mindset shifts are important for educators and parents to really support their teenager sons and daughters?
I think that's the most important part of it because it's always a two-way journey. If you're only working with the teenager and not the parent, if you're only working with the parent and not the teenager. With the parents, it's about communication, how they are communicating with their child. And I think the first step is to build that exclusive time with your teenager, whether it's 15 minutes, 20, slowly that time is reducing. But now I say, even if you can give 15, 20 minutes to them, which is like, which is the time where there are no laptops, no gadgets. I mean, even the parents don't have the phone on their hand. It's both ways. And the only thing that's there is a non-judgmental mindset. And it's not a transactional conversation where you're just asking them about their studies and their career. What do you want to do? Because sometimes what happens, parents are busy in their lives, which I understand. So the top of the mind is that my child, they within they want their child to be happy. But what comes out is that, your career, your studies. So that gets a little overwhelming for the kid. So that conversation, that 15, 20-minute conversation you're having with your kid is completely non-judgmental. You can do it over a walk. You can do it over a game, whatever it is, but it has to be that connection. Uh, I so generally, it's not recommended for them to follow the digital life of their teenagers, but in certain cases where the child is too digitally inclined, to step into their world as a starting point of conversation, sometimes you have to also step into them. But that's when the things are very extreme. The second thing which comes in is, which I say and which I talk about, is unjudge yourself as a parent.
I love this expression. Yeah, I really do. Yes.
I think it's like there's so many impressions being created over the day, so much of our own beliefs, our mindset, the way we've been brought up. There is so much on our mind also. But, before we go and sit with our child, I won't say you're competing with the gadgets, but then you have to be very present when you're with your teenager. And you can be only present when your own layers are not there at that. Like, as coaches, we are told just wear a wheel before you start your session, right? An imaginary wheel where you are completely clear in your mind and you're completely mindful about your client that time. That's the way to work with your teenagers, like that person matters the most. He's like the CEO and you're like the board of advisors or directors over there, right? So, but you have to give that focus to him. So I think that's very important, to unjudge yourself. The third, of course, is unjudge your teenager, where exercise that empathy, give them that space. Teenagers say a lot of things like, and it's both ways. I know it's completely blaming it to the parents, but then a lot of nagging happens at times where children say that, my mom is nagging me a lot, or, this is happening a lot. So they need to feel heard. They need to feel seen. So if they're trying to express themselves, don't directly jump to conclusions. Like this happened, but we just extrapolated it to something else. Right. So, so things like that. So like there was one thing which happened many years back where a mother and daughter came to me, and the uh, the mother was very worried. My daughter's not stopped talking to me. She's not talking to me. And she was saying all that in front of her daughter to me. That's a different thing. But then I met with the daughter, let's say, and then she told me that somebody called me fat, and not in a very nice way, in school. And I expressed that to my mother. And my mother said that, see, I told you you need to lose weight. So, that entire disconnect where you're not understanding her emotion, but you are doing that. Even in cases where the teenager really loses it or he's acting out, in those situations also sometimes it's about not validating their behavior, but somewhere validating where it's coming from. So validation, empathy, these things really matter from a parent point of view. The other thing which comes up is appreciation and acknowledgement, where you are genuinely appreciating your child, and know it when you're faking it. So it needs to be very genuine, and you give them, because they are not used to listening good things, whether it's school, whether it is anywhere else. They're not. So like I do this activity of children writing down their amazing qualities. Right? Write down your amazing qualities, and they struggle. I mean, it takes like, if you talk to them what are not the good ones, they'll write. But what is good, it takes a lot of time for them to write because they're not used to listening good things about themselves. And
Yes.
it all starts at home. So when you're listening to your, when you see something good, if they are not being participating in household chores and one fine day they do, appreciate it. Okay. Today they've put the bin outside or they've done this, small, small things. And finally, I think this one came from a teenager, is respecting the closed door policy.
Mhm.
Basically, where teenagers sometimes they just come, they shut their bags, they won't even say hi to you, and the parent ego hits. Why did you even say hi to me? And they rush into the room, and you're of course from within worried what's happened to your child, but then you will be constantly knocking and things like that. So sometimes it's not about you, it's that teenager is processing their feelings, their own emotions over the day, whatever they've gone through. So it's not necessarily they're hiding something from you. It's just that they're processing their feelings. After some time, give a knock, just I'm worried for you. And is everything okay? They will come to you on their own. So keeping your doors open is good enough. So yeah, these are some of the things. Then of course, the perfectionist mindset and a number of other things come in. Comparison. Sometimes unintentionally parents compare themselves to other children. Although nowadays it's the opposite. The children themselves are comparing them a lot more than the parents do it. But
Yes.
then these are few, and modeling the behavior. Yes, I think most important for parents is to model the behavior they want to see in their child. If you are on your phone and on that phone, when you're on the phone, you're asking the child to just shut down their phone, it doesn't work. So yeah, a lot of these things.
Right, fantastic. If we have about 10 minutes left, so I don't think we'll have time for Q&A, but someone did ask about books. Can you tell us a little bit about Unjudge Your Teenager? What is the main message?
Yeah, so this book basically came out of my experience of working with the teenagers over the years and from what they want from their parents, what their expectations are from their parents. So the book is about parents reflecting upon themselves. It talks about them. The first part of the book is it's like awareness, acceptance, action. The three parts the book is divided into. Awareness is where the parents first bring into awareness. It's like doing your own wheel of life. Where do you see the gaps? Okay. It's about understanding your parenting style and your spouse's parenting style. Because there are a lot of parental conflicts that happen and what goes out to the teenager. And teenagers are very smart and very nice little manipulators. They know how to even get their way out.
Yes.
So you have to be very, act as one unit in front of the teenager. So it talks about their individual parenting styles and how to come to a common page on certain parenting aspects. You may have difference of opinions on a number of things, but when it comes to your child, you have to be one. Because if on one side, if you are setting up boundaries and he knows that if I go to dad, he'll be chill. So, or I can take my mom for granted. So then things don't work out somehow.
Yes.
So that's what it talks about your parenting styles. Then it goes on to the accept. And then it also talks about the teenager's mind, what is going on in the teenage mindset, what's happening in their brain at that age, what all are they going through. Then it goes on to talk about acceptance part, where we talk about the communication mindsets, which I spoke to you about. It talks about a little more details with more examples on how you can work with your teenager. If your teenager comes up with this thing, how you can respond, how you can ask some meta. So I don't mention the word meta questions, but I talk to them as a reflective questions you can ask your teenager at that
Yes.
point in time. Then it goes on to the action part, where how to deal with this whole cyber world, how, when your teenager is too much on the internet or the gadgets, so how do you deal with it? Where you don't directly attack the digital gadgets because it's something very personal to them, but how you use different ways for it. So it's a 3-step book, talks about awareness, acceptance, action. And the basic message of the book is that reflect upon yourself first as a parent. And so unjudge yourself and unjudge your teenager. That's what it talks about.
Right, fantastic. Let us finish with we talked about meta questions. Can you give us an example? Because meta questions are very important, not just for parents, but also for coaches, people hoping to become youth coaches or who are already youth coaches. What works with teenagers? Just generally, a couple of examples.
Yeah, something like, okay, so if your best friend was in this situation, what advice would you give them for this situation? It could be something like recently, a teenager was crying a lot. We were on a Zoom session and he was constantly crying. So firstly, holding space, and then you could ask something like, what feels heavy right now, or which part of you, because I know the teenagers also sometimes, so which part of you is feeling unheard or unseen at this point in time? It could also be something like, what do you think that this situation is trying to teach you about yourself? So asking questions which are reflective, open-ended, which are, so instead of asking how was school, you would get a response, I don't know, or it was okay. You can ask, what was the most fun part of school, or the most boring part of school? Because bored is something, again, a word which comes a lot from teenagers. So what was the most boring part of the school? Things like that.
Okay. I think one of the questions is, do you notice a difference in connection or effectiveness when coaching youth virtually versus in person? You've coached across 17 countries, so.
Now, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So not that ways, but yeah, it's when you worked across, I can say doesn't make much of a I would say doesn't make much of a difference anymore. But there can be some very, very, very specific situations where probably I would say, or I would even recommend them to go for an in-person one. But otherwise, I believe it's about connection, it's about energy. And I think we can, and I think COVID time has taught us that we can really give that energy and positivity and the receptivity to our people around, or to our clients online also. But
Yes.
there may be very, very certain, very, very specific cases where then I would say to them that, probably go for somebody else. Yeah. Or in-person thing. Yeah.
I would like to thank all the audience for just being there. I think it's a very important topic. We have, quite a number of people participating with us. Thank you for the questions. I hope that in the future we'll be able to host Rajat again. Please, if you're interested in practical tools, you can read his book, Unjudge Your Teenager. He's also on social media a lot, and he's on LinkedIn. So please, do reach out if you need further, queries, or if you need support. Thank you all very much. Thank you so much, Rajat. We are really honored to have you with ICF Jordan.